Hello, everybody. Mike Donahue here, and you are on Groomed.Help. I am so glad to be with you guys. I promise you, we're going to be bringing on some guests, but it just seems like today would be a good day for me just to address some of you. We had a tough week last week with Charlie Kirk being murdered in broad daylight in front of thousands of people and even millions now that it's been on the internet, and that video has been shared. I haven't watched it. I refuse to do that, but I'm not going to personally. I just don't want to. But um, I want to talk about. I want to basically. I'm not going to talk political or that kind of thing. I don't want to get into whether Charlie Kirk was representing God or not representing God. Or I've heard all different things. I've been watching, my feed, and obviously I have people in my life that are non-Christians, Christians. Some of them are, Christian nationalists, and you know, some of them are, not, and they have different perspectives of things. And I don't want to shove anything down anybody's throat, but my life actually is about Value Up. I have a shirt on Value Up, just coincidence, but this is my company that I run called Value Up, and it's a motivational company that goes into public schools. And so obviously this is more than a job to me. I live this stuff. Like, this is my life. I believe that everybody has value, and I wrote a blog this morning for kids, and I have another podcast I do during the school year called Monday Night with Mike, and it's just for kids who, jump on our social media. And I want to read to you what I wrote. I'm going to read and sort of comment as I'm reading this blog I wrote for this podcast, um, for young people. Um, so one of the core ideas of Value Up is that every person carries intrinsic worth, an invisible number on their chest that represents how valuable they feel, not how valuable they are, but how they feel, because how valuable they are is already cemented in. It's already part of them, right? I don't get into a religious message in the school, so I kind of give some balancing statements, but here I'm not going to. I'm just going to say what I believe, right? Whether you believe it's a universe, you believe it's God, which again, I believe in God. Um, that your value is set, that number is inflects only in your perception of your value, not your value. Your value, if you're going to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, we're all tens, right? We all have God-given value that's not dependent on our behavior. It's we're made in the image of God. We have value because of that. When we encourage, include, or show respect, that number rises. Not the value, but the perception of the value rises in people, because we're all members of one another. We need each other for that, which I'm going to get into in a minute. But when we mock, a gospel, exclude, or all the things that we're seeing on the internet right now with people attacking, that number drops, right? And we know that. We know that because we've heard that in all kinds of different contexts, right? Whether it's in education or, in church. We know that when we put other people down, that's not good, right? But why? Like, why is that not good for us? It's definitely not good for society. We all know that, right? But I want to take a look at it from the perspective of us when we choose to hate, when we choose to attack others. So, this is something we don't always think about, but when we diminish someone else's value, we end up diminishing our own, right? It's when we look at people and we see them as not a 10, we don't see them as their true intrinsic God-given value, we're diminishing our own value. Let me show you why. I have 4 reasons why I think this is true. We share this. Number one, we share the same source of value. We all share the same source, right? And again, on the God context, we're made in the image of God. So we're all, that's where the value comes from. It's not what we do, what we say, who we know. It's the fact that we are born with value because we are children of God. Every human being is created in the image of God. That means their worth and your worth come from the same place, right? The shooter and Charlie Kirk have the same source of value. When I deny that truth about somebody, about you, I'm also denying that truth I'm weakening that truth that secures me, right? The thing that secures my worth is that truth, which is God gave me value. Well, God gave the people that I don't like value as well, right? So if I'm diminishing their worth, I'm diminishing my worth. Number two, it when we diminish others' value, it shrinks our capacity for love. When I belittle you, I train my heart to be smaller, harder, less compassionate. Over time, it's not just your number that drops, it's mine. I become less of who I was meant to be. I don't like myself when I'm putting other people down. The best of me comes out when I am valuing others, when I see value in you, even when you make me crazy, even when I don't like you, even when I don't like what you're doing. If I can look beyond those things that you're doing and go to the core of who you are because of your source of value, God, and the fact that you're made in his image, uh, that brings out the best in me. Even with all this stuff with Jeannie and all the stuff we've been doing over the last year, people have accused me of being bitter and hating her and diminishing her worth. That's not true. It's really honestly not true. I really have fought hard to see her and other people that I'm upset with, and I'm upset with their actions as children of God. They are children of God. They are loved by God. Many times I've stopped and made myself think about what God is thinking about those people, like right now, and trying to put my heart there too. But that doesn't mean that I can't hold them accountable for actions, right? That doesn't mean that I can't say what you're doing is wrong, especially when it's diminishing others' worth, right? When I perceive that those people are treating those people, the students at Master's Commission in those Bible colleges or whatever, those leadership colleges, when they're diminishing their worth and using them and grooming them for their own, egos and their own bank accounts, yeah, I'm going to call that out, but that doesn't mean I'm diminishing their worth. I still believe that they have value. I still believe that God sees them the same way, not any more, not any less than me. Like he loves me, even though I have sin and I have mistakes I've made in my life, right? So I'm fighting really hard for that. So number three, it says, I really believe when we diminish others, we are we're breaking the community, right? It hurts the community. I love the George Bernard Shaw quote. It says, "We are members of one another, so that you cannot injure or help your neighbor without injuring or helping yourself." Right? Let me say it again. We are members of one another. We are members of one another, so that you can't injure or help your neighbor without injuring or helping yourself. And we forget that sometimes, right? When we're spewing out our hate and our poison and our bitterness and our slander and our gossip, um, we're hurting ourselves. And I know I've crossed that line. I'm going to be honest. There are times on the podcast I have gotten really worked up and angry. And there's times that after the podcast was over, I spent some time in prayer and just cleansed myself from that, from apologizing to God and trying to own my own, bitterness. And I don't want to be bitter at anybody. I really don't. But I'm not going to stop being angry, because anger brings change. Rage doesn't, but anger does. And I dance that line, right? Because I am still a member of this community. And if I'm crossing that line and injuring Jeannie or injuring, or diminishing their worth, um, it's going to hurt me in the long run, right? So we're designed to live in relationship. If I gossip or treat you like you don't matter, or treat anybody like they don't matter, I poison the same space we both live in, right? I'm poisoning that space. And again, that's a line. Tried really hard not to cross that line. And when I do, like I said, I try to own that and go back into alignment where I'm trying to see everybody as value. And the last point of diminishing other people's worth and why it's not good for us is it's the same standard that comes back. If we judge a person's worth, right? Jesus said, with the measure you use, it will be measured to you, right? If you're judging others' worth, the value, um, that I'm going to be measured the same way. So if I measure others as worthless, I'm inviting that same judgment into my own life. And deep down, I start wondering if my value can be diminished just as easily, right? So that's the fight I'm fighting with the people that I'm upset with in this orbit that we're in, as far as all the church hurt and stuff. I'm really trying hard not to diminish their worth as people, but I am calling out action that I think is hurting others, and I don't have a problem with that. And I resent when people try to put those together and say, "Just because you're calling that stuff out, you're diminishing their worth." No, I'm not. I am calling out an action that is hurting others, and so I'm really trying hard, in this space to dance that dance. But bottom line is, it's not binary. You can do both. You can call out the sin, but also see that person as worthy. I said this on one of the podcasts, that somebody called me and said, "Are you happy now that the Assemblies of God have taken Jeannie's papers and taken her out of the game, at least in the Assemblies of God?" I That bothered me that they even asked me that, because what was going on in me right at that point was seeing Jeannie and other people as how God sees them. No, nobody's happy about that. How could you be happy about that and still see that person as worthy, as a worthy child of God? Because she is, right? I believe she's not healthy mentally and emotionally, but that doesn't mean she's a bad person, and she's not worthy of God's love. Nobody fits that category. Everybody's worthy of God's love. And so, no, I wasn't happy about that. And it violated that thing inside of me that knows. That's why I think it bothered me. I just started to cry. I sat in this closet in my wife's office, and I just cried, because no, I'm not happy about that. Why? Because she's still a child of God, and God loves her, right? And so, no, I'm not happy about it. Let me wrap this up here a little bit. The truth is just this simple: lowering others never raises us. It drags us down into the same hole we've dug. But raising others up with kindness, encouragement, respect, that lifts the atmosphere for everyone. I woke up this morning thinking about John the Baptist, right? So, in the wake of Charlie Kirk, I'm not trying to put them in the same category, but both of them were out in the public square proclaiming their truth, right? And putting out, what they thought was righteous, and both paid a price socially, right? Or, in society, they were killed. And it's interesting, Jesus' reaction, because he was told by, people, some of John's disciples came and told him that that he had been killed. And what did he do? The first thing Jesus did was he went away. He went into a solitary place. But then the crowds were looking for him. Why were they looking for him? Because in a moment like this, in a moment like that, people look for leaders. They saw Jesus as a leader. Obviously, he was healing people and he was proclaiming the truth. And he himself was out in the public square, talking about truth and the kingdom of God, and looking on the inside. And by the way, most of his outdoor, venues, when he was speaking, Matthew chapter 5, the Sermon on the Mount, he was causing people to look inside themselves and look inside your own motives and your own heart, and where you are with all this stuff, instead of, where we should be as a society. He was saying, "Hey, pick up the mirror and look at yourself." But that's a side issue. When he found out that John the Baptist was killed, he went away in the woods. People followed him because they were looking for a leader. They wanted help, right? I'm sure the society at that time was talking about, the news was spreading about John the Baptist being killed and why, and people were angry and wanting to stir up a revolution. And, again, they tried to make Jesus a king at different times. And what did he do? He healed them. He didn't send them away. He didn't say, "Hey, I need to be alone right now." And sometimes that's needed, but what did he do? He brought them in. He healed them. and he fed them. In fact, that was the day he fed 5,000. He took care of their personal needs, their physical needs, their emotional needs, their, you know, their spiritual needs, and he doubled down on his message that everybody was valuable. He didn't pick and choose that day. He just healed people. He loved people. Tomorrow, I'm gonna be at a school and I'm gonna do what I normally do, which is I go into schools and I can't bring a religious message, but I bring a message of value that we first should value ourselves because we are made in the image of God. I can't say that in a school, but the way I say it in a school is that, whether you believe it's God, you believe it's the universe, the truth about you is that you have value because you were born with it. And when you chase it, you're looking for it to try to bring it in. That's a cruel joke, right? Because you're chasing something you already have. So I do this every morning in my prayer time, meditation time, whatever, however you want to look at it. I talk to myself and I say, I'm not chasing value today. I'm not going to chase value today. I'm going to walk in it. It's a big difference between walking in it and chasing it. And that's what I teach in schools. Don't chase your value. Don't chase it through social media. Don't chase it through getting the right people to like you. Walk in the value that you already have as you become a better person. And then you see the world in a different way. And so I don't know what you're going to do tomorrow, but I challenge you to take the news of Charlie Kirk and be like Jesus. Double down on your heart to serve. Double down on your heart to care about people and to see individual people as valuable. Don't put them in categories. Democrats bad, Republicans good, or Republicans bad, Democrats good. That's just really cheap, low-hanging fruit life, right? That's just easy to do. Look at individual people with value. And I'll guarantee you it'll raise the water level of value in your own life. I hope you have a great week. We'll see you next week. Keep watching us, share this, and uh, stay connected to us because we want to stay connected to you. We're all part of each other. So, all right. See you later. Bye, everybody.